Hello, my name is Mike with Cram, and today I'm going to show you how to create a 6-month USMLE study schedule using our service. Cram is a tool that medical students use to prepare for the boards and figure out what they need to do each day. It's available for a free trial at cramfighter.com for 7 days with no credit card required. And we also offer Excel and PDF versions of sample schedules that you can use as inspiration as you create your own personalized schedule. And that's what I'm going to show you now. This is an Excel version of USMLE Step 1 sample schedule. And creating a sample schedule like this yourself can be a time-consuming process. CramFighter only takes a few minutes. Also, schedules like this are not very adaptable to change. CramFighter was designed to adapt to change. So if you experience an unexpected interruption in your schedule, or you've accumulated a lot of overdue tasks, with just a couple of clicks you can get back on track with CramFighter automatically, whereas this might require some manual tinkering with the Excel sheet. But we'll use this schedule as a guide as we create a schedule in CramFighter. You can see the resources at the top here: Pathoma, Fundamentals of Pathology, First Aid, and Uworld. And if you scroll down here, you can see that the first study period spans 96 days, and we call these study blocks. Study blocks are mini schedules within your overall schedule, so you can use study blocks in order to go over a resource more than once, or to create a dedicated study period versus a lighter studying period. And in this case, it looks like our first study block is a pass through first aid in its entirety once. So we're going to schedule that in CramFighter. For the second study block, it looks like we're going to then start studying from Pathoma and Fundamentals of Pathology. And then in our last study block here, it starts on day 153, we're going to give Pathoma another pass as well as first aid. With that said, let's get started. When you log into CramFighter, the first step will be to choose an exam and an exam date. In our case, that's going to be Step 1, but you could also choose the COMLEX Level 1, and you could also study for Level 2, Step 2, shelf exams, and even Step 3. So let's say that our exam is going to take place on October 15th. That's about 6 months out. Once you click Add Exam, the second step will be to add that study block information I talked about. So for our first study block here, we're going to go through first aid once in its entirety, and let's say we want to get that done by July 24th. And we'll click Save. Then we'll set catch-up days and unscheduled days. Catch-up days are days that CramFighter leaves unscheduled so that you can catch up on overdue tasks. And you can also add vacation days here, or days off, and even add free study days. Let's add one practice exam. Let's say we're going to do an NBME on May 3rd. And we'll click Save. The next step will be to add resources. So like we said, we wanted to do a full first pass through First Aid 2019. Here it is. So we'll select all chapters here and click Save. And we also want to start working on Uworld. So we'll search for Uworld, and then we will have the choice to input a total number of questions or a daily number of questions. So here you could put the total number of questions in the QBank. In our case, let's start by studying just 10 questions every day for this first study block. And click Save. For our first study block, that's all we're going to cover, so we can just click Continue and go to Step 5, which will be sorting in hours. First, we got to look at our sorting options here. We can sort by subject, in other words, by organ system, or we can sort by resource, in other words, chronologically. That would take us through resources cover to cover. We want to sort by organ system, and we can prioritize our organ systems here. So we might say want to do the respiratory system second, and we can customize this however we like. Once we're happy with the order, we can click Save. We can choose our study hours. If I, for instance, chose 2 hours on Tuesday, CRAMPRunner would know to assign half as much work on Tuesday as the work that's assigned on Monday. CRAMPRunner doesn't assume your pace, and it doesn't disallow you from creating an ambitious or potentially overwhelming schedule, but we do try to give you a heads up with this stats box here. And if your pages per hour or your questions per hour greatly exceeds the student average, then this box would be highlighted in orange, and that would just give you a signal that you might be creating a schedule that might have too high of a workload. But in our case, everything looks fine, and we're going to have a lighter study period here initially. So we'll click Save, and we can look at the summary of our study block and see if everything looks right. Now in our case, we're going to do 2 more study blocks. What you could do is click Finish and View Schedule and just see what you need to do for this first period of time and create those study blocks later. But in our case, I'm going to show you how to create them now. So you can click here and click Add Another Study Block to do that. So for this study block, remember, we're going to go until September 17th. And leave the last 4 weeks for our third study block. That's going to get us right up until our exam date. We'll do that next. So we'll click Create Study Block, and we'll leave this information the same. We'll keep our catch-up days as every second Wednesday, but you can always add more vacation days and things like that as you go. In this study block, we're going to go through first aid again. So we'll select all the chapters and then click Save. But we're also going to start working on Pathoma. So we're going to click that lecture series here and select all of the videos in Pathoma that we want to get through. We also want to study from Fundamentals of Pathology. And we'll select all those chapters. And last, we'll need to add Uworld. Let's say we want to do a complete pass through this QBank. Once we're happy with our resources, we can click Continue. At any point, you can go back and add supplemental resources. We support hundreds of resources, so if you're using Sketchy Medical or Physio or something else, you can always add those in. In this case, we're going to keep the subject order that's default here. And we're going to keep our study hours the same too. But again, you can always tinker with these. And now we've created our second study block. We just have one more to go. So we'll go to Continue Creating Your Schedule and click Add Another Study Block. And this will get us right to our exam date. We want to do this last 4 weeks as another pass through Pathoma. So we'll click Save, and then we'll keep our catch-up days and unscheduled days the same. And we'll add first aid once more. And we'll add Pathoma. And we'll click Continue. Now at this point in your schedule, you may have taken a practice exam and you may have figured out where your weak areas might be, so you might reprioritize things. You can do this later, midway through your schedule, but we can pretend that we have a good idea of what we want to prioritize now. So suppose we wanted to prioritize the gastrointestinal system, those tasks will appear first if we drag this row to the top. And we'll click Save. And we'll keep our study hours the same. We could, for instance, give ourselves a break on Saturday by setting 0 study hours. And click Save. And we'll take a look at our summary. We can see that our pages per hour is more than the student average, but this is our final push, and it's 4 weeks right before the exam, so we expect the workload to be high. So I'll just keep it. I'll just keep my schedule the way it is without tinkering with it. But if this signal was concerning to you, you could go in and deselect some chapters to get that workload to be the right amount. So now that we've created our 3 study blocks, we can click Finish and View Schedule. And you can see in just a few minutes, CramFighter is going to tell us what we have to do each day. And you can, of course, check off tasks as you go. You could move things around. You could tell CramFighter that you only got partway through a task. So suppose we only did 5 questions for this task. We could mark it partially completed, and CramFighter will split up the task. CramFighter will keep track of what's overdue in the Overdue tab, so you can use catch-up days to get back on track, or you can rebalance your schedule by clicking Edit and then Rebalance. And this will just redistribute overdue tasks evenly over the rest of your schedule, so you don't have to manually figure out when you're going to catch back up. CramFighter can figure that out for you. And the last thing I'll show you is that we also have a Progress tab where you can see your stats, keep track of your practice test scores and things like that, see how many days left until the exam. And that about sums up how to create a 6-month schedule in CramFighter. If you ever have any questions, you can reach out to us at contact@cramfighter.com. Thanks for watching.